All right, I'd like to call the December 15, 2020 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can I have a roll call of all present?
Mike Hughes, aye.
Bonin present.
Morris present.
Davis present.
Cortez present.
Okay, I do not have any announcements this evening, so we can move directly in. Does anybody else have anything they want to throw as an announcement out there, or are we all good? Nothing?
It's almost Christmas.
It is almost Christmas, and they're forecasting 30 inches of snow.
I didn't hear we were at 30.
30.
I didn't hear that.
I don't know if this is an announcement, but I don't want you guys to miss out on this. The extraordinary pleasure of receiving your
BVT Christmas card.
Excellent.
Whoop, whoop.
Now it's
Merry Christmas. Can we have money? All right.
more money.
The first order on the agenda this evening is the host community agreement request for Matcherline Farms LLC. Did I get that right? Matcherline. And that's a cultivation facility on Davis Street, correct? If you want to come on up.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good to meet you all. My name's Dan Silva. Derek Wicker.
Okay.
Yep. I'm founder, head cultivator for Matron. You can go ahead, Dan. I'll be in charge of business development and site development. I got the experience for that side of the business, and looking forward to seeing if we can come up with an agreement with you guys.
Excellent. And you're looking at, does it have an address in here?
153 Davis.
153 Davis Street. And I'm assuming it'll be an indoor cultivation facility?
Yeah,
or
a greenhouse.
A
Yep,
greenhouse.
yep. And we'll be starting at tier 1 and then hopefully be scaling up to probably a tier 8. I'm thinking we might be able to fit on there.
Okay.
And then we'll be doing cultivation and manufacturing on the same site. There will be no retail sales, no traffic in and out or anything like that other than our employees and me and Dan. Yep. Did you guys all have a copy of the what we sent over? I got a couple extra copies in case not.
Yes.
If you wanted to run through there.
The overview?
Yep. Yep. But yeah, Derek just covered it mainly. That we're going to be using greenhouses for the cultivation. Keep energy costs down.
Yes.
Best way to grow. Pretty much all naturally. Focusing on organic inputs and the organic, no PGRs, no salt-based fertilizers, no nothing that will negatively affect the environment around us. It's all going to be pure organic inputs. It will have auto watering systems, so we're not going to be watering till runoff. We'll be conserving water that way. We won't be watering every single day as well because we'll be doing soil, so we'll also be conserving water that way as well.
All right, and is this recreational or?
This will be recreational.
Recreational.
Yes.
Have you gone through the Cannabis Commission process?
Yeah, so right now we have our applications partly filled out. The host agreement is part of one of the packets of the application. We have our lease deal signed and done. So the next step is the host agreement. We have the engineers going through the plot plans, all that good stuff. The greenhouse company, which is Grospan, they're out of Connecticut. We're going to be working with the S2000 greenhouses. They're state-of-the-art, fully environmental controlled, all the bells and whistles. And yeah. They'll actually most likely provide the metal building that we'll use for the processing and drying as well. Kind of attach that to the greenhouse. We're going to have to see how the final site plan comes out with the civil engineers to see the orientation. About the exact orientation of everything on the site. But
Maximum sun, all that?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It actually lends itself to greenhouses, fortunately, too, because the southern exposure is it'll be easy to, or best to put the building Where
it faces the sun that way, so.
And then we'll be running supplemental light, which will be all LED. There won't be any high-powered bulbs running, consuming crazy electricity or anything like that. And eventually, we would like to put solar panels on the property to try and make it all self-sufficient. That's like long-term goal, though.
And in seasons like this too, where we have lighting going on in like the shoulder parts of the day, there are, automated curtains that come down in the greenhouses, so
Full
we're not
blackout.
disturbing neighbors or anything in the area, shooting off light out
Yeah.
the greenhouse.
So full blackout?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't know if members of the board have noticed, but that facility on the Uxbridge line, right on 146, man, that is like,
Lighting up the sky.
that lights up the
Oh, yeah,
sky.
yeah.
You're not going to do that? is
No,
what you're
it's
saying?
gonna be full blackout. You're not gonna see a single light when it gets dark. You won't smell anything. We'll have full carbon filtration going on. Everything's gonna be self-sustainable. Evaporative cooling systems. We'll have the heating, HVAC, all that. Like I said, full automated watering systems. Everything.
One of the big selling points of that greenhouse manufacturer is actually that they do that complete package
Yeah.
with the humidity control, those fans,
Yeah.
the curtains that come down to put out in the early mornings
Yeah.
or afternoons in the wintertime.
And they're a big agricultural company. They started just doing regular crop greenhouses and all that, and now they're expanding into the cannabis field. So they're a well-established company that know exactly how to handle business, which is nice.
All those details are priced into our site development numbers that we have planned and are what we're factoring on.
Yes.
Why Douglas?
So I don't know if you know Douglas Land Corporation, Doug Caffrey. I ended up meeting him through a mutual friend, and we ended up connecting because he has land for sale, which we ended up leasing and going through him. And this is a great part of the state because it is like almost in the middle of everything, you know what I mean? Like you can go, once it does go federally legal, we could go over the border and go down to Connecticut. We could end up back over into Boston. We can go Western Mass. It's like a good hub for everywhere, and it's a good agricultural community from my understanding. So I just think it's the perfect spot to set up and get started.
Kind of a fortunate, I mean, you met him at Thanksgiving Day parade last year, actually. I just struck up a conversation pretty much, and both interest aligned, and seems like it's a good place for us to start. We definitely have the long-term view of being here for that time period where, we want to, if it does go federally legal, that we would be here in the 10, 20-year range to
Yes.
keep going on here.
Okay.
All good there, Squeaky?
Yes. Excuse my absence, I apologize.
Want to trade chairs?
I'll wait till you leave, how's that? I won't inflict this on you.
So you're leasing directly from DLC, so this isn't Rob Wolf's
No,
venture or anything like that?
no.
So he's out of the picture?
Yes, this is purely me. We've
It's
signed the lease, we're all done. Douglas Land Corporation had actually been changed to another name. What's the name? Woodland LLC?
Woodland Brook, yeah.
Woodland Brook?
That's just-
So they're solely just leasing us the land. They're not involved in any of the cultivation, sales, or anything like that. They will be getting a royalty,
yeah.
but that's it.
Yeah.
Long-term lease?
Yes, 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Option to renew, in a way that works for us and structured in a way that we can get through all these initial processes comfortably to be able to get what we need done licensing wise and then really hit the ground running with building out the facility and getting into the actual business, when with that structured into the lease. Yeah.
Service with a smile.
A
Mr. Vice
replacement
Chairman.
chair has come for you, sir.
No one heard that.
Exclamation point.
Oh, my God.
Uh-oh.
Heard that either.
Now you're calling Colorado.
think he is calling someone. Not anymore.
Just in time for the snowstorm.
Exactly.
Avaya's going to send you a bill for that.
I need to call OSHA.
So, you do need water though, right?
Yeah, so we're planning on 2 wells.
2 wells?
I think that we're going to be, it's a question mark on the site development, honestly. There's a creek running through the, or Scadden Brook goes through the property. So we're going to have to deal with either a 100-foot buffer or 200-foot buffer. And depending on if it's a, what we end up with, it's going to be 1 or 2 wells. There's no water on that street, so
Right.
we'll have to drill a well. Yeah.
It stops at the high school, I think, right, for water?
Would, the nearest residential house? I don't know where 153 Davis is.
I'm not sure, because I'm pretty sure it's commercial land, right?
It's in the industrial, yeah.
So it's all-
I mean, it's over
Yeah.
300
Shouldn't be
feet.
an issue
Even-
then.
Sure.
I don't think there's anything near there.
Even behind it?
We got
There
the,
wouldn't be anything behind it.
Okay.
On either side of it, pretty far distant, there might be a residential structure, but it's pretty far.
It is.
This is the property with the natural gas pipeline coming
Yes.
across? Yeah.
Yes.
So when you go down the street, you can see the pipeline comes through a clearing right up to the edge of Davis Street and across.
Yeah.
They're on the north side of Davis Street.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Or
I do not.
I don't
any concerns?
have any concerns.
How about you, Mr. Davis?
I'm set.
Well, is this your only focus? We hear
Yes.
sometimes it is?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been working towards this for a long time, so I'm going to put everything I have into it.
Good.
yeah.
All right.
So you would assign 1 or 2 members to
The HCA,
the HCA.
which is pretty much standard.
It's very standardized at this point.
Yeah, I think Hal and I dealt with the last HCA.
Right.
Do you guys?
This is very similar, got the names and places.
Yeah, probably.
It looks like it is pretty similar to Flying Goose there, yeah. Well, I think they're doing retail though, right, too? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not doing retail, but.
Anybody have any issues with myself and Mr. Davis handling the HCA?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Tim?
Love it.
Mike?
Fully supported.
Fully support. How do you feel about going through another one?
Yeah.
Since this isn't a regional,
That's my specialty. Why not?
Well, it's not regional.
it's
so
not
it would
regional,
be-
so I think,
Yeah, stay away from my
Allen,
turf.
yeah.
And there's no perambulation required, so.
I don't want to step on his toes for any future opportunities that open up on.
You can't see my smile, but I got one. So, all right, so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we appoint you and Hal to create a subcommittee to pursue an HCA with Matroline Farms LLC.
Awesome.
second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis guy?
Morris, aye. All set?
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
That's very nice.
Good
meeting
luck,
you.
guys.
Thank
Good to
you.
meet you guys.
All right, so the second agenda item,
Interrupt with just a bit of news.
you may.
My son, who was in Air Force training, graduates in 2 days. That was him. He wanted to wish everybody well and also to tell us all that it's 79 degrees at Lackland Air Force Base. So,
2 days, huh?
2 days, Thursday.
I'll have a special greeting for him when he gets back.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Good night. That's something. Good for him.
That is. So, and he's graduating as airman or?
Yes.
A1C?
Right, yes,
Which one?
airman.
Airman, okay. All right, so we're going to review HCA requests for Flying Goose / Dark Stream cultivation on Davis Street and manufacturing on Davis Street, and then retail on Webster Street and possible votes. Sound about right? Do we have the HCA all negotiated? I know that the emails have gone back and forth with it. I believe that we're all set with those. Hal didn't see any difference, any changes that needed to be done.
Right, so the question is, what do you want to do? You were the other assignee to this?
It seemed fine to me. I had no problems proceeding with it.
All right.
So your email as of the 9th is moot? Where the documents were in disarray?
Disarray?
No, there were more emails after that. They got fixed. They got referred to your subcommittee of Hal and Kevin
Yep.
to be brought tonight. See, when Suzanne didn't get your okay, she didn't print them out because she didn't want version control issues for the board.
Oh, my bad. I apologize for not, can we make a vote on moving forward on the HCA and then sign them at a later date?
Well, I haven't read them.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
would be
kinda have to
best.
see 'em.
I'm going to look at the, looking at the agenda. If you take a couple of things out of order, give me time to print everything out, but I still should give your members a chance to read it
All right,
before you vote on it. But if I distribute them tonight, at least you have them.
all right. So my apologies to Flying Goose. I was bad on communication back to getting things printed out. And I'm hoping it doesn't close you guys up too bad.
No, of course. Well, we're happy to follow the board's lead, whatever they're looking for. Just for the record, Daniel Glicksman, attorney from Prince Bell Tie, here on behalf of Flying Goose and Darkstream. Just want to make sure I'm following correctly. Are we proposing to push the execution of these to another agenda, to the next available agenda?
Yes.
In order to give the members time to review?
Yeah, it's my fault. So I didn't respond quickly enough to Suzanne to have those printed out and distributed to the rest of the board. I got tied up with a bunch of other stuff, but still no excuse for it.
No, understood. No, absolutely.
But I will put this on our next available agenda, and we'll move forward with it on that. And like I said, I do apologize for the delays.
No problem from our part. Like I said, we're happy to follow the board's lead, whatever is necessary.
So you can tell them they're allowed to curse me publicly if they'd like to. All right, so Matt's going to grab those, and we'll deal with item 2, the next agenda. Item 3 is an appointment to the EDC alternate, Scott Duncan, to full member, and possible votes. We did finally receive the resignation letter from our previous member that wanted off of the EDC. And I believe the chairman for the Economic Development Committee asked if we could please appoint Scott Duncan to a full member with a term expiring on June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nay.
All right, roll call vote.
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morris, aye. I think we want to wait for Matt to get back because it is the FY21 Telstone and Stun, Inc. MOA and possible votes.
Well, let's do some other stuff.
Yeah, can we move down to,
Let's go to 5. Yeah, we'll go out of order on this and come back to 4 when Matt comes back. Discuss and vote and assign a board member to negotiating teams for the police and fire union talks. So, Dave, did you handle those last time?
I've done both in the past. I'm willing to do it again or work with anyone that the board chooses to appoint.
I have complete confidence in Dave's ability to represent us on the team.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
How do you feel, Mr. Bona?
I couldn't think of a better representative for us.
How do you
I
feel?
have full confidence in him.
Thank you.
Be careful, he's going to get a really big ego if we keep saying stuff like that.
So I'll move that we appoint Selectman Cortez to the negotiating teams for both the police and fire union talks.
I'll second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Cortez.
Thank you. I'll do my best.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as being on a regional committee. or
It gives me something to aspire to.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
The panache that those regional appointments do.
Jeez.
Yeah, you know,
Do you guys want to go over the common vic Class 2 entertainment and pool table license renewals?
Sure.
And I'm just reading through a memo to see if there's any concerns on any of them.
There are some apparently that we have not received renewal packets for. So Suzanne outlines that in the first paragraph there.
Oh, and she has the contingency
Right.
already in there. Works for me.
This is a Hughes appointment, or motion, I think.
it is.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, it says Hughes all over it.
So I'll make a motion that we approve those licenses that Suzanne has checked off, as having provided us with the information needed, contingent upon the licensees addressing all violations and recommendations from the fire department during the fire inspection.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye. We can approve the minutes.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the December 3rd, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye.
Now, there are some December 4th executive session meeting minutes in our packet, but I don't believe we met on December 4th.
I believe that was December 3rd, correct?
I do.
Whew.
Yes, we did meet December 3rd.
Right, because it was after our December 3rd meeting.
So
So,
we'll amend these?
Yeah, we need to amend the date. So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes with the amended date of December 3rd as opposed to December 4th,
Second.
2020, and we retain those meeting minutes.
Still second.
Motion's been made and seconded twice. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye. All right. Mr. Wojcik is back. We wanted to discuss the FY 2021 Telstone and Sons, Inc. MOA and possible votes. We wanted to wait for you, Mr. Wojcik.
So what did you do in my absence? Item 3?
All the rest of them, except for your minutes.
And your report.
How about 5?
Yep.
Yep.
So who-
Dave Cortez.
You're stuck with me again, Mr. Wojcik.
That's okay. Both unions have invited us to bargain. Okay, so you're aware. The pandemic's forcing us all to consider the nature of our business relationships with our vendors, because some of them are facing more significant impacts than others. So the best way to think of this, to frame the issue with the bus company that provides transportation services, both certain special ed bus services and all the yellow buses the regular routes, is because of the uncertainty, whether we're open, we're closed, we're hybrid, we're not, the contract we have with Telstone right now is really a contract for them to provide services almost on a standby basis, right? They need to be ready to go when the Douglas Public Schools need them to go. But there are going to be times when the schools are closed, and right now they're closed. They're not closed on Wednesday, but they are not busing anybody to school on a Wednesday, which is a change in the level of service that we receive for what we pay. Last year, Telstone agreed to freeze their rate, so they did not have a year-over-year increase in their basic fee for regular bus service, the yellow bus transportation. So that was a bit of a break to us. It does reflect lower fuel costs. In the meantime, the nature of the relationship's a little bit different too. There's a lot of added cleaning, disinfection, and preparation that they do, and the town doesn't deduct for Wednesdays out of their contract. So step one is to memorialize that exchange, I think, to prepare to protect both the town and the vendor from any future claim made by anybody else. We should memorialize the meeting of the minds that those two reflect consideration and they cancel each other out. So all the added costs of preparing the buses should be offset, will offset the not getting the service on a Wednesday, but we're getting more hours out of them because of what they have to do. And just call it a wash. DESI has instructed in a permissive fashion, school districts may enter into contracts to pay for services that are not received in order to preserve their vendors as a viable business entity. The finance director, Gene, and I agree with that basic strategy or basic thought process, because if we contract for a standby service, they still have fixed costs. If they're leasing their buses or if they've bought them and they have installment payments, their insurance bills are probably annual rates. I don't know when they're billed, but it doesn't really matter. It's an annual contract. All of those costs must be met by the bus company, whether or not they run a bus every single day or not. So if we're going to keep them in business, for lack of a better way of saying it, we should do what we did last fiscal year, which is acknowledge those fixed costs and pay them regardless of the level of service we receive. The only caveat to that, and where we had an internal meeting, and I think we had agreement between the school administration and the town administrations, that there is a point at which we're overexposed. So the suggestion that I've put into some drafted language for the school committee to use if they want to is go back to Telstone and change this part of the contract. If the schools are closed for more than 20 consecutive days of scheduled school, so that's basically a month, then we have to come back and reduce what we pay them, because beyond that, now you're starting to pay for an awful lot that you didn't get. And we should be mindful of the fact that in the last fiscal year, when we closed books because of the school closures and the stance that was taken both by the public schools administration and the town, we paid roughly, I think it was 63% or 64% of the charged or contracted costs to Telstone. And the turnback on the school transportation line as a whole, remember there's more special eds busing in that line item than there is Telstone. There are other providers, but the total that came back to the town general fund was $338,000. This is non-trivial. And Telstone's turned back just on regular bus service was $103,000 of that. So bearing that in mind, we didn't want to be overexposed. So the suggestion is to go back, take another run at the contract language and say, if you're closed for a prolonged period of time, regardless of who closes you. So right now the language says the state, we needed to protect the town for anybody closing them, whether it's the Board of Health, the superintendent on his own decision, the school committee on their own decision. Being closed is being closed. We're not we're not paying for the buses. So they're going to take another shot at that. What we're requesting you to do is still discuss it, see if that language is acceptable to you. If it is, I think that gives the school administration some guidance on how to proceed in their discussion with Telstone. If you want to assign one of your members to participate in the conversation, you might want to do that. Ultimately, this is a contract that, in my judgment, the Board of Selectmen should review and be signatory to. You could say in a very legalistic fashion that since you have delegated the town administrator to be the chief purchasing official for the town, that I would have the authority to sign the contract. I think I do, but I don't really want to. It's $1 million. It's one of the biggest contractual relationships the town has. And as a chief executive of the town, I think you should definitely exercise purview over it to be sure that you're satisfied, because it is a general fund expense. We talk about it in terms of the school budget because the school department issues the regulations that govern the relationship. But ultimately, this business relationship is not part of the school budget, it is part of the budget as a general fund item, and thus largely under your purview.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the contract with Telstone, is there like route review for optimization or anything like that?
It's not memorialized in the contract, but there is language, and I think this is just the MOU, I don't have the underlying contract.
Right.
The school department has language in its existing underlying contract with Telstone that allows the school department to change routes at its sole direction. So in other words, the school committee can say, we don't need Route 4 anymore, we're not going to pay for Route 4 anymore, we need to redo this. That was pretty much how we got that last project with the consultant to move forward. It wasn't necessarily something that we needed to negotiate in a contract. It was already language protecting the town. Just remember, there are qualitative factors on school bus loading and how many kids can be on, and how far apart they're supposed to sit and all the rest of it that are not within your control. Those are DESI regulations, and the school department has to make sure they're complied with.
That hasn't been an issue, though, I would imagine. Given the
Well,
fact that-
ultimately, I think we did consolidate away one route.
Right.
Because the load factors were too low.
But seats in a chair, seats in a bus, we're not at any sort of capacity on any given day, given the fact that we're only sending half the school 2 days a week.
Right now, it's not an issue at all.
Yeah.
No.
That's,
No, you have to have a seat for, in the regular, normal school year, you have to have a seat for every kid, regardless of whether they ever take the bus or not. And so your load factors are always going to be lower than what you allocated in your route structure, because they're going to be just a bunch of kids, especially high school kids, who don't take the bus. So you look like you're running light all the time. But on any given day, that kid's alternator could fail, and they run and they catch the bus. You have to have a place for them to sit.
got it.
Not that my alternator ever died when I was a teenager.
I think I might have replaced one or two of those myself.
So formally, you would be declining to sign this tonight and asking the school committee to go back and work on the language as discussed. I mean,
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think that makes very good sense.
Agreed. Dave?
I agree.
Hal?
Concur.
Hal concurs.
It does.
So we'd be looking for a motion to send this back to school committee to have the language altered per the town administrator's recommendation.
I'll so move that.
Second.
All right. So the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morris, aye.
Is there a time urgency to this, in the sense that they probably want to?
I think they're on it. I think the school department knows the confluence of the holidays and the schedule of the committees is such that this will probably be on your next agenda.
Yeah.
And it will be on the school committee's next agenda as well. But if Telstone agrees to the language as suggested, then it would be pretty quick. that first week of January.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, that brings us to your report in COVID-19 update, Mr. Administrator.
Getting back to those HCA's, very late in the game, it was disclosed that it was the intent of Flying Goose to create a separate corporate entity for its retail operation, or to separate their cultivation and production establishments from their retail establishment legally and formally by creating a different company. So they may, in fact, or de facto, they're still vertically integrated, but there's a transaction now that will occur from one corporation selling to another. So that transaction will be subject to the town's tax because there's that exchange that's occurring. But that it's well within their interest to do so because it changes their liability structure to have more than one corporation. So you went from having 3 HCA's with one company to 2 HCA's, one for cultivation and production, and the other is for retail. When I got the documents, I said they were in disarray because the simple search and replace hadn't really been fully executed, so there was, in the recitals, and every time the parties were named, they weren't always changed, so I didn't know who I was looking at. And then there were a couple of terms in here that were discussed between the two parties that needed to be clarified a little bit more around odor control and some of the other work. After reviewing the town's last exchange, so the town was the last one to send a final edit, the other party agreed to all the terms and signed. So the only thing that remains is for you to review the terms and sign. Bearing in mind that we're doing these as templates, that all of our cultivators would have very similar agreements, all the production would be very similar. It's worthwhile reading it. Once again, I think Attorney Fedorov did a wonderful job representing the town. It's very mindful of detail and has negotiated so many cannabis agreements now. Probably is one of the more experienced attorneys on the municipal side dealing with this. So there are 2, and there's a copy for everyone physically present. Hal's already read them and thought they were acceptable, so. That's that. While those are going around. COVID, the names change, the addresses change, and they replace each other as fast as they roll off, as they have for the past several weeks, but the day-to-day number of active cases does not go up by much, and it doesn't go down by much. It's anywhere from 19 to 22, 23 every day that are active. I was made aware, Selectman Hughes pointed out to me that there was an article in the newspaper over the weekend that said that we have 146 active cases. That is not accurate. We may have had 146 total COVID positive individuals since the beginning of this thing in March that were tested and made it to the database. We know we had many more than that, especially in March and April, who did get sick, never got into the database because testing back then was virtually impossible to get, and if you didn't get a test, you didn't go into the database. But now, most of what's getting into the database is, I mean, there's so much testing being done that that's what's going on with it. We haven't seen fit to do much more than maintain 2 ambulances. This has been needed. We're about 40 calls over our year-over-year standpoint at this point. Each and every COVID call, or every call is assumed to be COVID positive because some people don't tell us until after they've been transported, et cetera, et cetera. That's still happening where we take a sick person to the hospital and find out after the fact that they were positive. So the crews gear up as if everyone is COVID positive. And they clean and disinfect and restore the ambulance to put it back into service, and it's not a quick turnaround. It takes a while to spray everything, wait for it to dry, wipe it all down, and get it back. So we don't want to lose that service, and at least one of our mutual aid partners has had a fairly substantial COVID outbreak within their ranks. So they don't even have the staff sometimes to back us up. So we just got to keep plowing ahead. We consider all of this to be either FEMA or CARES Act reimbursable, that second ambulance. So we don't see ourselves as exposing the town financially to it, but we don't want an interruption in service to the people who do pay the taxes for it. So far, so good. The ambulances have not broken down. They're pretty much brand new. And many thanks to all of our full-time employees and our call firefighters and EMTs who've really been stepping up and pulling all those extra shifts, because that's a lot more coverage for the people of the town.
Is a case defined as somebody with a positive test or somebody with symptoms?
Somebody with a positive test or a test that yields what's called a probable case.
Okay.
So those are your antigen antibody tests. But it's not a case anymore if you served out your quarantine and you are now back in circulation. You're not a case anymore. You're not in the database.
Okay.
The public safety radio project we had our initial meeting with the vendor to review all of the different parameters of the project. There's a couple of major notes I would make for everyone. One is that our project is very different than the town of Sutton's. And thus, under procurement law, we look at it very differently. In Sutton, they had to build a fair amount of stuff. And it was part of their bigger overall building project, their police station. When you build things, you have to comply with Chapter 149, which is the public buildings procurement. And there's all of the thresholds and processes that go along with Chapter 149. We're not doing that. We're not building anything. We're plugging equipment into existing slots, unplugging the old stuff, plugging the new stuff in, programming it, making sure it works. There are installations of dishes outside up on towers, but that's a 3039M procurement because it is not a building, it's a tower, it's a structure outside. There's no roof, there's no walls. So we are going to follow the statewide contract under Chapter 30B for the entire procurement because it's statewide. We did not go out to bid. We didn't have to. We did a more than cursory review. So over the course of many months, both the people I assigned to this in the public safety departments and myself interacted with any number of people from Motorola, from Cybercom, from all the major vendors at different conferences, and got their sense of how they would go about this project. And it just always came back being an astronomical number. When we started having a conversation with Marcus Communications, it was almost like our last straw. We had heard they'd done a nice job in Mansfield, Connecticut, which is more famously known as Stores, in the home of UConn, and found out they had done a number of projects in the Commonwealth and had part of a statewide contract in the Commonwealth, so we knew what their pricing was going to look like, and that they were a Kenwood, primarily a Kenwood dealer, Harris and Kenwood. Kenwood's a better solution for us because they're the Sherman tank of public safety radios. They're not special. They're not going to wow you with all their features and all their capabilities, but they're priced typically lower, and they're much more durable. Some of the vendors have a reputation for planned obsolescence. The last thing we want to do is go out and spend a couple $100,000 on radios, only to have the vendor come back and say, yeah, but that was, we gave you a break on that. Well, now we're changing the chipset or whatever it is. Unfortunately, a couple of the vendors are famous for doing that, and that isn't the way Douglas runs. We can't afford to be doing things like that. So we're very happy with these guys. They've done a tremendous amount of consulting and design work for free up front, and have been very thoughtful about how to save us money and still get us performance that we need to get. It's been a very revealing conversation. So part of what we have to do is figure out the fiber backhaul is between this building and the fire station and this building and the schools. We think it's all there, it's just a matter of getting Spectrum to answer our phone calls, to work with us. Fascinating issue, that's a segue into another part of my update for you, is that the project that is scheduled to occur on the piece of property that crosses the three towns of Sutton, Uxbridge, and Douglas, just on the other side of 146 on Lackey Dam Road. That's not the one we've been talking about in terms of selling town property. That's Mrs. Bedoyan's property, all of it, but it crosses the three towns. It's a 600 and some odd thousand square foot warehouse. By building code, they have to install public safety radio booster equipment in order to accommodate anybody who has to be inside such a large building responding to a call. Guess what? They're in the middle of 4 towns, and any one of the 4 towns, they're in 3 towns, but Northbridge could respond as well. So we've got to figure out how they're going to be able to protect everybody and notify dispatch in all 4 towns of what's going on. So it'll be a complicated venture. All of this is in the context of the update. That building is definitely going to happen. And, pardon me, we're meeting tomorrow on conference call to go over how they're going to advertise for the different boards and commissions in all 3 towns. You know, try to have a unified advertising strategy, a unified strategy for the consultant that we're going to hire as the municipalities for peer review of all their plans. And it's a complicated undertaking, but so far, thankfully, this is a world-class operation that we're dealing with, so it's not like we're fighting with them over, you know, pouring concrete on the wrong day or anything like that. That does happen from time to time in this town, like yesterday. I won't get into any details about that one, but this begs the question, and the Traffic Safety Committee's been putatively convened. We're just waiting for CMRPC to respond. But we have any number of roads in town that may have already met the warrant or may very soon meet the warrant for controlled intersection. And if this is the kind of traffic we're going to be sporting on Lackey Dam Road, then we want to make sure all the towns are protected and that the entrances are properly designed to handle all that traffic. You know, the good news is I can't foresee a lot of that spilling over to Douglas just because they're there because they want to be on 146, not because they want to shoot across the woods on Route 16. They might occasionally do that, but one of the things we're actively talking about is trying to interact with the GPS providers to not flag 16 as a viable alternative route to get from 395 to 146. Major truck traffic should be on Route 20 or even Route 90 to accomplish that switch, not coming through a little town like this in our downtown. The last thing I had for you in terms of the budget, we are steadily working towards a budget. Right now, we're very focused on capital. I don't think the numbers are crazy out of whack in capital. I actually think if we can figure out a way, time is the enemy. We're just hoping that the wear and tear on the various things that we need to replace in the next 5 years doesn't accelerate. I've had a little bit of bad news at the fire department. Engine 1 is pretty rusty. And rust isn't the best thing to have on the frame of a truck that runs down the road with 8,000 pounds of water on it. So there'll be different kind of conversations. Capital meets tomorrow. All the department heads have responded with their revised capital. Budget-wise, much of my activity has been with COVID, but budget-wise, we're beginning to look at what we would suggest for a COLA. Townwide, BLS came out about 2 weeks ago, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, with a Northeast regional cost of living increase of 1.3%.
Really?
And Social Security, interestingly enough, this year was 1.3%. So that's on the low side, but we don't really want to outpace the world if we can help it. So everybody that's going to talk to me about their COLA should be prepared for a conversation about a modest COLA this year. I don't really want to do this with public safety, but I think the other major union in town, I'm urging them to consider a one-year deal to get past the pandemic before we have long-ranging reform in dealing with the Douglas teachers. I'd rather not try to forecast where we're going to be. We don't know. The state budget looks fine. The cherry sheet's going to reflect no change in our Chapter 70 or UGA. It's not going to go up, it's not going to go down.
Yeah, why not lump public safety into that mindset?
I'm open to doing that, but I don't anticipate, let me put it this way, I don't anticipate major language revisions that reflect any sort of negotiating quid pro quo, like, we're going to do this economically, and then that would set the stage for a language discussion. I think we're very happy with the contracts we have. I don't see moving a whole lot off the dime in terms of where the language sits. So financially, we should shoot for stability and try to work it out. Whereas with the other union, we're talking about significant changes. There are significant language issues. I don't want to commit to an economic package. I would rather not see the school committee commit to an economic package without getting necessary concessions or changes to language. It's philosophical.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this board has to approve the strategy, and I think we should discuss that in executive session. And then it goes to town meeting. So there's more than one bite at the apple to make sure you feel good about what you negotiate. But that's how I'm coming at it.
Yeah, and in those negotiations, if they become a little more robust, we have the option of pulling away for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things you could do. You could say, well, we'll settle 1 year of COLA, but we'll leave openers for the other 2.
Yeah.
If provided that the opener is only on that topic and doesn't reopen the whole package. But that is my update. The last thing I guess I should say is, yes, we are going to get a storm. All of our equipment is operational. To the best of my knowledge, all of our subcontractors are still healthy and able to participate in the effort. It'll be slightly different. Normally, when the team is working overnight, they eat in a congregate setting. Somebody brings in food and everybody's all together in the same room. But we can't do that now. Everybody's going to be grab and go, get back to your truck, get back to work. It'll feel a little bit different for them because it is a very long night. But it looks like we have a long night ahead. There's really no way around it. We're going to get at least a foot of snow, unless something significantly changes in the next 24 hours.
That's what the ocean says.
That's what the ocean says.
All right. I do see that we have the police chief on. Thank you for the ornaments, chief.
You're very welcome. Hanging with pride.
That will certainly happen. Thank
Yeah. Chief, I will say it's very difficult to get on Mrs. Bonin's tree, but this one will.
Chief,
Thank the missus for it.
Well, thank you.
Chief, I just wanted to thank you that even though you met with me for half an hour this morning and probably noticed that my collar was in disarray and was inside my shirt, you didn't point it out. So I was able to go through the entire day with my collar completely disheveled, but that's okay. And the next time one of your buttons isn't shiny enough, I won't tell you.
Sure you'll get me back.
Our police chief is a true gentleman. He wouldn't.
He could have just grabbed it, kind of gone like this, and I
Yeah.
would have gotten the message eventually.
All right. Anybody have any open session topics for not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of this meeting?
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just, if it would be helpful for the board, I'd be happy to provide a little insight on the dual entity proposal by Flying Goose / Starstream for the post-community agreements. That was a recommendation from our office, so if the board would like, I'd be happy to provide some additional insight very briefly.
I'm good. I mean, anybody require additional insight on it, or?
No, in my
No,
eyes, it's the same people, just
I
different
think we're
corporate
okay.
name.
Yeah, we appreciate the offer, but I think we're good with what's sitting in front of us, and we'll put this as our first agenda item on the next meeting and
Exactly.
get this executed for you guys. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I just wanted to make myself available if you guys need some more information, so.
I appreciate it. Okay, I think we're up for one of your famous motions, Mr. Bonin.
All right. I would make a motion that we move into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining, and then to leave executive session for the sole purpose of adjourning for the evening.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis,
Morris, aye.